We are here at 4 Mile Farms LLC, just outside of the corporation limits of Jackson, Ohio, where Secretary of State Frank LaRose stopped by to visit with local farmer Dylan Newsom, not only to take a tour of the farm and to discuss some of the challenges facing farmers, especially young farmers these days, but to incorporate and officially establish his business in the state registry.
He was kind of wanting to meet with somebody that was younger, ambitious, into the agricultural industry, which, at this day and age, there's not too many young farmers. It's hard to, come by. So I was fortunate and we're very, very privileged to, that she asked me to be a part of this, and just kind of going to reiterate what we do, how we do things, and maybe some new things that we're incorporating into our program. And my grandpa had this farm, our home base, I'm going to call it. I'm not sure the exact year he bought it, but he's had it for a long time. And then my other grandparents have a century farm that's been in the family for over 100 years. And then, moving forward, my wife, she, didn't exactly grow up on a farm, but loves it. And the boys, we have a 7-year-old boy and a 3-month-old boy. So we're hoping that they, try to just keep the tradition going, and we're trying to build it up for them, and, hope that they love it as much as I do.
Secretary of State LaRose went over some of the challenges facing young farmers in Ohio today, and also shared some of his personal experiences having worked on a small family-owned farm in his youth.
Starting at probably 14, 15 years old, I was excited to go to work every day. A lot of my friends were working in retail or food service, and certainly nothing wrong with that. But for me, being out working on the farm was a lot of practical lessons, right? How to fix this, how to drive that. I knew how to drive before I was 16 because I'd driven, equipment around the farm. But I think more important than any of that is just the lessons of work ethic that it teaches you. You got to keep working until the work gets done, and that's the kind of thing that I took with me when I went to serve in the Army, and it serves me well still today. Dylan and I were talking about, and what has been a big topic of conversation that the Ohio Farm Bureau has engaged in is encouraging people to get into or remain in the profession of farming. It's a challenging but also very rewarding way to earn a living.
Senior Organization Director for the Jackson-Vinton Farm Bureau, Kim Harless, was on hand today as well. One of her main duties is to act as a liaison between the Ohio Farm Bureau and the local Farm Bureau.
Yeah, Dylan, the Newsom family is very near and dear to my heart because my daughter actually went to school from pre-K to high school, graduated with Dylan. They've been in 4-H together. They showed sheep, goats, and when they first started, this wasn't here. This was not a farm. I mean, this was just land. And they were down the road a little ways, and they had a small barn. So they came down here because they expanded. And then Dylan went to UK and got his degree and came back. You don't see kids come back anymore. They go and they stay away. He came back because he wanted to farm. He wanted to be a part of agriculture, and he wanted to be a part of the community. So the roots are very, very deep here with the Newsoms. Just great family, 4-H involvement. He's been on the Soil and Water Board, joined Farm Bureau. We hope to get him on the board soon with that, but just a great family. And when you think of agriculture, you think of Dylan. Dylan rents property, and he's just a great person all around. Loves to farm. We work closely with our legislators, Farm Bureau does. We are a lobbying organization, and we work with them. And I've been with Farm Bureau for 30 years. So my name's kind of gotten out in the area. When they say Farm Bureau, they think of me here, and that makes me very proud. So when he told me he wanted to talk a little bit about agriculture and young ag people, and maybe the new and current things they're doing, farming, I instantly thought of Dylan, because Dylan is such a go-getter. He's always, he's very modern. Technology is important to him. So when they ask about agriculture and a young ag person, it was a no-brainer to me.
Secretary of State LaRose went over not only his role in the business community, but also discussed some of the particulars of his election duties, and more particularly what went down last year with regard to one of the most challenging years ever with regard to elections in the state of Ohio.
To stop and think about what we accomplished last year, in our entire 217 years of history as a state, I don't think we've ever had a more challenging set of circumstances for running election. That's not exaggeration. When you, obviously the pandemic and all of the challenges that go along with that, everything about elections administration is about gathering people together in a specific place and exchanging things back and forth, and so that we had to have the right health and safety standards in place. We rely on tens of thousands of poll workers, those people that are staffing those voting locations. Many of those folks are over 65, and so many of them were maybe hesitant to work as poll workers, so we had to recruit a whole new generation of poll workers. But there was also this challenge that we faced about this really sort of dynamic political environment with false information swirling from a variety of different sources, and so making sure that people had accurate information about how to be a voter. You take all of that and put it together, it's never been harder to run an election. But Ohio's bipartisan elections officials, these people that work at our 88 county boards of elections, the tens of thousands of election day poll workers, they really rose to the occasion. And so in the midst of the most challenging election we've ever had, we also had what I can only call the most successful election we've ever had, and here's why. Nearly 6 million voters cast a ballot in the November 2020 election, an all-time record-breaking turnout, close to 75% participation rate. Never seen numbers like that, and so that's a good thing for Ohio. But at the same time, as I told you, we had more poll workers than we had ever had. People that stepped up for the first time in their lives and volunteered to be an election day poll worker and did the training and were ready to go. 56,000 Ohioans were ready to staff those polling locations to make sure that every polling location was fully staffed. We had 59% of the ballots were cast before the polls even opened on election day. So all-time record-breaking numbers for early and absentee voting, and it ran very smoothly in Ohio. And then a number that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but one that really mattered a lot to us, is that the rejection rate for people making a mistake on their ballot and having it rejected, that normally is around 1%. People fill out their absentee ballot return envelope wrong or what have you. And we did some very proactive things to help drive that number down because we knew we were going to see more absentee voting than we'd ever seen. And so we wanted to redesign the form, make it more intuitive, the instruction sheets, the envelopes, all of that stuff, to make it easier for people to use. And that number that is normally around 1%, we drove that down to 0.42. So we cut it more than in half. And so with all of those kind of metrics, this was clearly, to me, the 2020 election was the most successful election we've ever had. And here's the bottom line. This is how elections are supposed to work. Whether your favorite candidate wins or loses, you should be able to have confidence that it was a fair and honest contest. And that's exactly what we do in Ohio. I think in a lot of ways, Ohio has proven an example for the rest of the country to follow.
This has been Phil Buffington from Total Media at 4 Mile Farms, LLC.